Lately, we've been investing heavily in public transit, serving the eastern suburbs of Zeeburg with our very first commuter rail service and a brand new tram extension. Today, we're throwing even more money at transportation, as we are breaking ground on the Northern commuter rail line featuring a very distinctive new station. We'll surround this station with a beautiful district packed with history, and you guessed it, we're extending the tram network again to create some seamless train-to-tram transfers. If you're excited about these complex projects, hit the like button, consider subscribing, and let's dive in. Alright, so we're gonna kick things off with yet another complex infrastructure / public transit project based on some cool suggestions to extend the tram line that currently terminates here in Bremen South to the train station in Bremen North for easy transfers. But it's probably gonna be a little more complex than you might initially envision, because I'm gonna make it elevated. Yes, some parts of the Zeeburg tram network is starting to function like a lightweight metro of some sort with all the elevated segments. I mean, all we need now is some underground segments for it to be a proper light metro. But you guys know I don't like underground stuff because it hides all the fun action. I'm gonna grab this elevated tram station, and it is by coincidence a perfect fit right in between the parallel avenue here. I don't think any of you expected this to be an elevated segment, because the obvious decision would just be to replace this crazy on-off ramp with some tram tracks that could then move across the expressway here. But we're gonna keep this wacky piece in place because, hey, I adore it. I'm so proud. And then we're just going to elevate the tram segment here also for future expansions, because it means we can bridge the tram network across this lake to serve this suburb in the future. So I guess there is gonna be a bit of competition between the commuter rail system of Zeeburg and some of the tram lines, because there's a bit of a tram craze going on in the city, where these lines extend far beyond the inner city areas. Now, to fit in the tram elevated segment pillars, I need this on-off ramp segment to be about as narrow as possible. But of course I need a solid line in between here, because it's still a highway piece of sorts. So something like this. It's good I've got a bunch of random stuff created throughout Road Builder. So something like this is pretty much perfect, I think. And then we're gonna grab the one-way tram tracks. Let's see if I can find these on this guy here. And we'll need parallel mode. Fortunately, the station utilizes exactly 0.5. So it's gonna be fairly easy, I think, to move across this segment. Oh, this feels like the right decision, the right call to make. And it's a bit of a fun place to kind of pause the construction, because it looks like an actual ongoing construction with some of the harder bits being saved for last. But I think this is gonna work out wonderfully. I'm sure it's gonna be slightly expensive though, but I mean, one of my motivations for building a European city was to have some proper expensive public transit infrastructure, something that can be a little harder to justify in like a realistic US context. At least the initial price budget overruns feels very realistic in a US context. But I'm just trying to use Move It to move some of these nodes so I get the single pillar structure here. And it's just so cool how flexible the game is, that when you start moving these nodes with Move It, it's going to try and recalculate where the pillars are gonna sit. But I'm actually going to, I'm gonna do a quick little detailing thing, a little attempt at something before I finish up the connections here. And that's because I think the station is looking a little bland with this very, very dark roof. The material used is just, it's almost like one of these black colors, I don't know what they're called, that are like meant to not reflect any light at all. So I'm gonna see if I can grab one of these cool murals and maybe just paint the roof something a little more cheery. It's not gonna be perfect, but I think it might just work out. I think it might just work out. I feel like one spontaneous decision is quickly moving to another one. But so far, I'm pretty content with both of them. Yeah, the elevated thing is very spontaneous. I haven't planned anything, but it's gonna go splendid, I think. I hope you agree that this is a slightly nicer color scheme than the Super Manta Black, whatever it's called. Back to getting it all connected up, I will just pause the game for a little second because I can't do with the single track station anymore. I'm gonna get rid of this and get it replaced with a proper dual track station. We might do this one with an island platform in the middle, because then I don't have to wait. Then I have to bring 2 tracks through this intersection node, which might be a bit of an issue. So I think we're just gonna do a regular station with 2 platforms on either side. Just gonna move it, get this moved, just so that visually it looks like it's gonna slot right into place without any issues. Come on, perfect. And then we'll need this connection right here. So I think for this purpose, I probably need to grab these 2 nodes, just bring them back a little bit so that we can join them up here. Because then I can bring this dual segment through the intersection, which is gonna be much easier than trying to bring 2 separate segments through. It wouldn't be impossible because the network tooling is so wonderfully flexible in Cities 2, but it wouldn't be easy, I think. Now, hopefully I can say 180 and just move through just like this. And that does look like that's the case. Beautiful. We'll probably need some complex curves for these 2 segments, and I might just eyeball it because there are so many nodes in a very small amount of space here, so it's probably just gonna cause issues if I have too much snapping on. Yoink, and this one right here. Did that connect? I think it did, actually. Let's just get a bit of snapping, so I make sure I connect to the right place. Move in a bit and connect right here. Wonderful. And I think ideally I want to align the elevated segments right next to the elevated avenue so that it almost looks like that they're at least to some extent structurally the same or structurally attached, for just a bit of cost savings now that we're building a overly complex tram network here. But I think this is gonna work. Let's get the quick connections in place here, and then it's gonna take a ton of move it magic to get this to look nice. But it should be fairly easy. Getting some quick node adjustments with the Control R key. And the same for this segment, the same for this part right over here. The nodes are acting up just a little bit, but I think that's all right. It is starting to come together now. It's not completely flush just yet, but a few tweakings and it's going to be. So I just kind of want to hide the guardrail next to the pedestrian path on this elevated segment here. And I think there is enough for clearance right here. I'm just going to bring this back a little bit. These complex curves are gonna be a little more tricky to eyeball, but there are so many nodes and other connection points that, you know, whenever I enable snapping, I can do it for the final stretch here and when I branch out, but I don't, yeah, it's not gonna really allow me to do it without any snapping. Oh, sorry, with the full snapping. But this looks all right. Oh no, the game crashed. I'm gonna redo that. Yeah, so I'm back in game having fixed everything up again, but if you ever wonder why I do this many saves, it's not because I experience frequent crashes, not at all in fact, but when I do, it sucks. So it's all properly connected up now, and I even think most of the move it work has been done as well, because it's a very smooth transition all the way up to the station. And the crash hadn't saved the original mural I'd used for the tram roof structure here, so I've applied a different one that kind of blends in a little bit with the black of the original roof, and it kind of looks, it looks a bit dreamy, doesn't it? But I like this a little more. Anyways, we're about ready to get this connected up. So I spoke a little too soon about getting it connected up, because we can't utilize this tram station as a terminal station, because the trams won't be able to reverse out of here, which means we need an additional station. But am I really gonna add another one out here already? Alright, okay, look, this is all gonna be like very temporary, just a quick job out here just to add a station we can actually reverse at, maybe add a few housing units as well. This was not the plan. This was not the plan, but this track, or rather just any dual track, is going to allow us to reverse the trams, which is what we need, so we might as well just quickly get this connected up. And look, it might have been cheaper and easier from an engineering perspective to combine these two tracks quickly in this overpass segment before moving across the lake here, but I think it looks more fun if we don't. And I have seen stretches of the metro in Copenhagen where they just utilize two separate parallel overpass segments or elevated segments for, I don't know the reason actually, but it does look pretty nice moving across the lake with two elevated segments. So yeah, that's definitely what we're going for. I know I said temporary, but it's not gonna be this temporary. That is just awful. Let me get this sorted. I just can't help myself. I told myself explicitly it's a temporary station. It doesn't need any infrastructure, it's just so the trams can reverse. But here we are, a few roads later, even a couple of on-ramps, even a district named Linton. And I guess I have to follow my nature, so the next obvious steps, for me at least, would be to connect the tram line out here, and then actually add a few buildings, maybe even a bit of detailing, maybe even an elementary school. Because I just can't stop myself. I need to see this station actually being used as well. I guess on the flip side, this is helping grow the city, but let's get the tram line connected. We'll just grab so that we can add an additional node here, which is going to automatically reverse right before this station. Then we're gonna make sure we've got yet another stop here now that we've got two platforms and we can realistically move in both directions. You might wanna, I don't think you're gonna take the stop to this station to get onto the train. Maybe you will actually, but you might wanna go out here to Linton when there's something to actually see out here. Yeah, I'm justifying all of these new tasks I'm creating for myself here. We'll get disconnected and now this should work. So I'm hoping to at least see some activity here by the elevated station, because obviously Bremen North is very densely populated. And it's going to be interesting to see if there's any transfers between the commuter rail line moving into the station now and the tram line. I don't think so. I don't think there's much of a reason to just yet, but I think having elevated tram above the train tracks or the train station is that becoming a signature thing for me? I mean, maybe it slightly is, because I am replicating the same design from the previous episode, although an entirely different station in both cases. But yeah, we've once again got trams moving across trains. Anyways, with the line all connected, let's get that bit of development added to Linton. We're gonna grab a super simple Orion elementary school from PDX Mods, really lightweight asset in this case, but it really does the job. 420 additional capacity. And then in terms of the development, yeah, I haven't really thought about that. I think the road layout kind of tells me that it's large scale apartment complexes or row house complexes, kind of like in Bremen. It's not going to be single family detached housing on individual lots at least. I just need to figure out specifically what type of housing. So I think these are a pretty good fit. These are level 5 medium density apartment buildings from the Eastern European themed region pack. And the thing I like about these at level 5 is that they can either be modernized versions of older apartment blocks, like some of the older stuff we've got over here in Bremen, or alternatively they can be entirely new developments. That's pretty much up to your imagination. I imagine they're slightly older, but they've just been renovated with some nice new facades and stuff like that being added. So I'm just gonna fill in the rest of this area, and we're gonna keep it super light with a few quick paths and a bunch of trees. And I think this is really going to help this station, which is already seeing a few people actually waiting for the trams. So much for a quick station, huh? Linton is home to 1,135 people and 55 employees, which I figure are all located at the elementary school. And as mentioned previously, people are actually waiting here, 46 people in total. And the ZTN-free tram line is quickly becoming one of it's probably the most interesting public transit route in the city. I wonder how this station is doing. Let's have a little visual look at first. Looks like quite a few people. Now I can't count, but 90 maybe? Maybe 100? 210 no less. Oh, that's awesome. That's really awesome. So this might have been a little too complex, a little too expensive, but it is effective. It's working at 100% efficiency and it's got a ton of people waiting. So that's really nice. Alright, so moving on from one complexity to the other, we've got a new commuter train station to get placed. And if you recall from the previous episode, I kinda identified 3 main avenues of commuter rail development zones, so this would be areas kinda reminiscent of the Copenhagen finger plan, but once again we've got a couple of raptor claws or something like that. These areas are going to be centered around a commuter rail station, and then there's going to be quite a bit of a dense build-up environment around them, and we're gonna have green space and low-density suburbia in between. And so going by that plan, we'll now be branching out the Northern Development Avenue, which is this large blank area, slightly neatly nestled in between a lake, the marshlands and a bunch of rail infrastructure. So the challenge here is getting a station placed, and this is quite elevated, by the way. This is situated on a hilltop. And then getting that station connected across most of the rail yard, I guess, to make it efficient across this elevated track as well, and then somehow connecting it to the main rail highway, so to speak, that leads into downtown. And getting it all done with somewhat realistic gradients and inclines as well. Yeah, this is gonna be fun. Obviously, we're gonna start this project with the actual train station and then pretty much just make everything else accommodate to that. But the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a bit of terraforming, because I kinda wanna play into the hillside vibe out here and just make this hill a little bigger, which obviously needs to which means that the district here obviously needs to be named after the hill. Obviously, like that's a given. Something like this. We've also got a tram station, a tram stop, a terminal stop out here, but I definitely need to get this changed to directly serve the train station, just for some added public transit achievement points, I guess. In terms of the station though, I'm not quite settled just yet. It's gonna be a single dual track configuration, I think. So maybe I should just go with something small. This is actually a tough one. I've placed down 4 stations here, and one of them is a real joker that would very much shape how this entire area looks. And what I mean by that is, I think that train station architecture should, at least to some extent, kind of match the surrounding development architecture, whenever possible, that is, with the limitations in game. So these 3 ones here, this one being the Eastern European themed train station, which is a nice, unique design I haven't utilized yet, which is also a bonus. Then we've got the small overground train station. This is from Tigon's Rail Infrastructure Pack. It's slightly more modern, but a really nice station. And then we've got the small train station, this one, which, yeah, it is exactly like, it's just that, I guess. Although it has a very suburban vibe with these small shelters and very little actual, I guess, train-related infrastructure. It doesn't have like service stuff, or actually I'm not quite sure what I'm saying. I don't know anything about train stations, but to me it looks very suburban. And then the actual joker would be placing down the French-themed train station. Because I haven't used that, and it's a really nice one. But if I do place that on this hill, then this hill is gonna change dramatically in terms of how I envisioned the design. It's not gonna be 1960s public housing anymore. It's gonna feature some old, beautiful themed buildings like in central Zeeburg. And then it would need to have a unique narrative. So maybe because it's a hill, kinda tucked away from all the industry at the harbor and the waterfront, it was developed as a slightly more upscale neighborhood. I think that could be a ton of fun. More tricky, definitely, but I think that could be a ton of fun. And then maybe a French-themed name like we've got with Antoinette and Dauphine, but kinda with some hill stuff in it as well. I'm not making this easy for anyone, but I think this is gonna add more character. We're gonna go with the French-themed one. Yeah, just trying to adjust the placement a little bit, because I need to be mindful of the bridge, overpass, viaduct, whatever you wanna call it, that will need to move across the rail yard here, but I think this is probably a pretty decent staging area. And then I just quickly want to see how we can integrate trams here while still trying to preserve this kind of historical notion of this area, because this area is, as I mentioned, it's turning out to be a much older design than I initially planned. So obviously we need car access due to the surface parking that is available here. I mean, I guess we could actually remove some of that. We're gonna try something here, okay? We'll have a regular frontage road that is gonna branch off, and then this segment is going to be tram only, dedicated for the tram tracks. Or is it actually? Changing my mind here. I'm gonna grab this track, and we'll have a single segment of this track right about here, so that you can still access this parking if you need to. And then this is gonna be a central square, so that's why there was room for the tram tracks to be added here. Also, I don't need to do this much justification. I'm just making everything hard for myself. So I'm just trying to think of the history of this area. And I mean, even if I do consider the history, it's a tram. I mean, lots of places were built around like tram infrastructure, so it could have been here for a long time. Anyways, I think this works. I'm just gonna grab a version of this one that doesn't have a 2+1 segment, because that's just not necessary. I mean, this road builder road I've got is almost perfect, but not quite, because the 2 meter median here, the 2 meter median, yeah, that's something else entirely. The 2 meter wide median user's template isn't wide enough to accommodate a tram stop, so I'm gonna have to bump that up to a 5. I'm sure I've made one of these roads before. This might be a duplicate. Let's just call this the wide 2-lane road tram station. Yeah, perfect. And then we'll get to use a pedestrian segment here. We're gonna branch off at exactly 45 degrees. We're gonna upgrade that with tram tracks, of course. We'll make this a bit of pedestrianized areas with some shopping and stuff like that. And then we'll need an intersection here before we branch off the tram tracks once again. Let's just make this a quick and dirty job, and we'll just move into the roundabout with a free tram segment. Complex curve. Then we're just gonna quickly grab the 2 existing stops here, get that moved right over here. I'm really trying to have my public transit lines stay active for as long as possible when I build out this stuff here. Because it's just fun seeing things in action early on. Why doesn't that work? Can't you reverse? I mean, the tracks here, there is one crossing. So if I just move it to this stop, oh, it's actually gonna work. And what line is it once again? The ZTN4. So this is the one that goes, let's see, it moves downtown and then it turns east here in Alexandria, and oh, it's the one that serves the new arena and the new redevelopment, Neuhafen. Cool. I really need this overpass done, and soon, because it's gonna be the more technical part of this station's connectivity. But before that, I need a few more roads out here. Like, I need a bit of terraforming as well. I kind of need to flesh out the hillside here just to get like an overall idea of where things are gonna sit and how it's gonna look. Because right now, yeah, this is one of those spontaneous decisions where I really have to trust the process. Oh my. Yeah, I guess one thing kind of just led to another. And I guess with this whole thing being so spontaneous in terms of the like architectural style and the age, I guess I needed to do a little more than just place down a few roads and a few structures to just see if this vision could actually be realized. And I think it works. I think it's pretty interesting. I'm not fully sold on the color scheme of the buildings just yet. They don't really tie into the station perfectly. Maybe changing the white facade here to kind of match the off-white, the cream color of the station might help a little bit. But other than that, it's definitely a fairly interesting area. In terms of the actual history of this area, I think the history goes something like this. This hill used to be farmland, or maybe just spruce forest that was cut down to be utilized for the growing industrial sector of the city. And the valley here has contained rail, infrastructure and related industries for quite some time. Yes, this is actually a valley, now I think of it. And as the city continued to grow and expand rapidly, some of the older inner city areas of the city became quite busy, rundown, disease-ridden, and, let's be honest, filled with poor people. So how would wealthy people distance themselves from all the poor squalor in inner city Zeeburg? Well, maybe they would build something on this hillside. Something nice, something a little more upscale, away from the disease-ridden inner cities and with good distance to the busy and loud port areas of the city as well. I mean, that is slightly dramatized. Of course, there are nice districts in the inner city area as well, but not quiet ones. So if you sought something nice and quiet during the late 1800s, you might very well have had this district on the lookout. A district which needs a name. Yeah, it's not gonna stay Cooperfield, that's for sure. Anyways, as part of the grand plans that several real estate developers agreed on to build this district, they needed a train station because this was like the obvious way of connecting with the inner city and the outside world as well. They also needed some basic amenities such as local shops and goods like butchers and cheese shops, and yeah, that's where my imagination runs out, but I've tried to replicate this by adding some commercial units at the very bottom. Did I move this by an incident? Oops, I guess I did. I'm just gonna move that forward a little bit. At the bottom floors here, it's a very crude process, and when I recolor things, some of the props and the signage is gonna disappear, which is a little awkward. But as long as they stay in place, this is pretty much the best I can do in terms of enabling mixed-use developments here. Because obviously I have mixed-use stuff available to me from the German-themed region pack, but it's a very specific type of building that is mixed-use, and it feels more modern than these old beautiful ones. So this is the slightly hacky approach I'm utilizing, but I think it works. They needed a large open square with a beautiful fountain, which today is plagued by homelessness because this area is fully unaffordable. This is truly a late-stage capitalism simulator. They also needed some nice natural scenery, so they created these unnatural man-made ponds. Unnatural or not, they've helped skyrocket the housing prices out here. So yeah, it's a perfect area, perfectly dysfunctional. Let's get the train tracks connected. This is gonna be a tough one. Okay, we're starting to have the very basics in place, meaning that we've got the actual connection set up now. The infrastructure one, I haven't added the train line just yet, because there are a few issues that needs fixing, a few of them big, some of them quite small. So I'm utilizing this 4-track segment by Tygon through his rail infrastructure pack, which is perfect for a situation like this. But the routing is acting a little wonky. So this is one of the trains that connects the inner city of Zeeburg with an outside city connection, and yeah, it's definitely doing a bit of a wonky transition here because it can actually just utilize this track, and we've kind of got the same thing going on in the other direction. It's just to avoid this weird piece here. Because the turn here is just a little too sharp. I mean, technically, the train should... Okay, so you can barely do it, I guess. Oh man, this is getting so complex. There's gonna be so much train activity here when we get the 2 new lines set up. It's gonna be a fun time-lapse, I think. Anyways, for a slightly bigger issue, I don't think I can make both of these overpasses work. there's just not enough clearance here unless I really just bury this road down, and it's already super steep as is. We'll see if we can figure something out here, but I might have to just, I don't know, remove this track or just kind of cut the overpass segment, and we'll just detail it up as a now defunct set of track, which could be fun. Also, it is currently in use, but it doesn't have to be. It's the historic station's connection to the outside cities that's using this segment, but it's only because it's the shortest distance. They could very well just utilize this right-hand turn here, which leads onto this super busy rail corridor. So we might do something like that. I'm just gonna hold off for a second with demolishing anything. Instead, I want to upgrade the overpass here, because I think it needs to look a little more historical, or at the very least a little more unique. And so if I open up, if I filter for what was added with the Bridges and Ports DLC, we've got a couple of lift bridges, which unfortunately I haven't got around to using just yet, because we haven't crossed the Bay of Zeeburg just yet. But we don't have to cross anything more than this rail yard to utilize it. I mean this one looks kind of cool, right? It's got a pretty old vibe going on, so let's just try this upgrade. We'll see how that looks. Oh, whoops. Yeah, never mind. See if I can just get rid of this pillar right here. That is of no need. Oh, I mean, it looks pretty cool. It really does. I think it looks older and a little more rough. Not sure. Can I add graffiti on the side of this pillar here? I mean, if I... not quite, at least not. Is there any type of graffiti I can add? That's a bit of a shame. That would have been a super nice addition. I guess if I placed each pillar manually, I would be able to, but oh well. It looks super unique, and I think it gives off a slightly more old vibe. I guess this overpass hasn't been renovated to the same standards as these have, so I think that's pretty cool. Now there's definitely quite a bit more tweaking to be done and some actual detailing, but I don't want to postpone setting the actual lineup anymore, because it's probably gonna see a bit of activity, at least if we judge by the popularity of the tram line. We've actually got people waiting here. There's plenty of people traveling with the tram as well. So let's just get one initial line set up. We're probably gonna have 2 lines in total. One moving to the historical station and one moving to the modern one. So let's start with the historical station connection for once. So we've got plenty of available stops in here. We're just gonna grab this one, move all the way out here, and complete that line. Just gonna pause because obviously I want to control a few things before we let any trains spawn. So as I'm recording this, I'm still waiting for a few naming suggestions for some of these new commuter lines. So I'm just gonna call this the West 1 or W1. So this is one of the lines out here in Bremen. And I know train line 5 is also, East 2 and East 1. My bad. So I know both of these originate out here in Bremen, in the eastern part of town. Yeah, that's my logic. And thereby I'm gonna name this North 1. And as with all the other commuter lines, we're gonna utilize the Talent 2 generic train in a 3-car configuration. I think that should be more than sufficient right from the get-go. We're gonna lower the train prices for these commuter lines to $2, euros, whatever this is. And hopefully we're gonna see a bit of action. I'm gonna do 2 trains. I mean, more trains, right? I'm expecting them to spawn from the this terminal rail yard. We'll see. Come on. Hello? Oh, there we go. So that's the first one. I wonder if the second one has been spawned from the major rail yard here. That might very well be the case. Whatever the case, we're sitting here at this new train station, waiting with coffee in hand for the train to enter, and then we're just gonna take a ride into town. And hopefully things work out perfect and we don't have any weird jankiness. At least not super weird jankiness. There's plenty of regular level jankiness here. We're just gonna grab this one for a ride. So it's slightly awkward to have the other train waiting, but hopefully in time they will just kind of decouple and spread out a bit. But we have 8 passengers and 1 dog on the very first trip here, which I think is a pretty good sign. It usually takes a bit of time for the actual demand to pick up, so this is nice. Just gonna quickly pause here and a quick comment about the grade here, or the incline. It's actually not terrible. It's about 4%, maybe a bit below. And it does seem like there's a bit of room for a few additional move-it tweaks to just really sort it out. But yeah, so far so good. We've got the regional outside connecting train passing us. Moving through this segment with plenty of speeds and then making the right turn. Lots of overpasses here. Starting to really slow down as we approach the historical station here, the central station. And I'm very curious to see how many people actually board, because the new district is almost entirely residential, currently at least. Oh, it's so cool with all this added activity. 10 people, almost matched by the amount of dogs. That's a pretty crazy pet to people ratio. And this is even on the newest patch, which I'm pretty sure has reduced the amount of doggos around. So yeah, I guess this trip is a bit of an outlier. But maybe this train contains people that are moving into the new district. It's still being filled up. So, and maybe they have a lot of dogs. I don't know. I really don't know. We've got more people waiting at the actual station, so let's just see as this thing pulls in. 26. Oh, that's nice. So everything looks to be just fine. I am just gonna go ahead and tweak a few additional things with Move It. There's definitely a few areas that are just a little too bumpy, a little too wonky. There's like this segment seems to be a little more sunken than the actual nodes, which is not ideal. So yeah, I'm just gonna do a quick cleanup off camera. Doesn't this look cool? Actually, I'm gonna do some of this on camera. Not because Move It is very exciting to look at for extended periods of time, but because I've grabbed the early access version of Network Tools by Luca. This is a highly anticipated mod, I think that's safe to say. So I'm gonna grab the slope tools and let's see, this mod might just be perfect for this type of work. So I'm gonna grab this as a starting node and I'm gonna grab this as the end node. And I can choose constant slope or I can select the ease in out. And then I can designate the flatness percentage of the start and end nodes, which is just fantastic. And the UI is just incredibly intuitive. Changing these percentages is going to change the elevation percentage of each individual segment, which is updated and shown in real time. So I think 20 is probably a good spot for me, around 20%. It really is perfect for rail segments like this, because we can see how this segment beforehand was quite steep at 3.1. That's gonna be reduced to 2.4%. While this final stretch here was at 1.6, that's gonna see an increase as well because this segment is less steep. So overall, it's just gonna be more smooth, which is exactly what we want for train infrastructure. I can also use the tool to add new nodes, which is wonderful because if you're a subscriber or you just regularly watch my content, you know just how frequently I add extra road or rail segments just to get an additional node in place. And we've got a segment here that is like very long. This is a 280 meter long single segment. And I might just want to add a node in here because I am lacking just a little bit of clearance on this overpass, but I have, and I'm lacking a bit of clearance here because we can actually see the electrical wiring kind of poke through, which I obviously don't want because of immersion. So I'm just gonna lower this segment quite a bit so that we're fully clear, and then I'm gonna smoothen the sloping out. And here's another segment where the slope tool is gonna come in clutch, because if I click this starting node and this end node, we see that this segment here is very steep at nearly 6%, while this segment here is at only 3.1. So just applying this tool, it's gonna kind of even it out. It's it's still a little steep for trains, but it isn't exactly used by freight. So I think it's gonna work. We've got this big quad track segment running through Carlsbridge and Livonia, which is apparently a little more wonky than I initially knew. I mean, I guess I can kind of see it, but as I click each node, yeah, I mean, this segment here is super steep, and if I branch out a little further, I can get that to a really, really respectable 2.6 at max. So I gave all the entry tracks to the historical station a bit of work with this tool, and look at them now, they're just smooth as butter. Another amazing feature of this mod is the visual change that it provides you before you actually apply the change. So in this case, I'm attempting to grab this start node here and smoothen out the entire ramp leading up to the modern elevated station. But it's also pretty visible that if I do that, which I should because this is way too steep, I might run into a few issues, almost, at least with this ramp here. But I think it's worth it because currently I've got a segment at 9.5%. So that is very, very steep. I applied the change, and now this off ramp is, it's a little dangerous unless you're driving like a 1990s Mazda Miata, I guess, but I should be able to change this. There's a node right here, which I should be able to lower quite a bit. So if I select this as the starting node and this as the end node, it's just gonna smoothen that out, but there's still plenty of clearance for trucks and vehicles. All fixed up. Alright, so there's already near constant action alongside the main rail corridor here, but we're actually missing a line because I did want 2 lines to depart from this new station into town. We've currently only got the connection to the historical station. We're still missing the connection to the modern station. So this is going to be the North 2, I suppose. And we're of course grabbing the very same talent to generic. Then I'm using the Better Transit View mod to just move through all the commuter lines, making sure that the ticket price is really quite low at the €2, I guess. The outside connections, though, they can stay at 8. I don't really know the difference they do. Now this is technically a commuter line as well between the 2 major stations in downtown. So I'm dropping that to 2 as well, and I would need to rename this to... Yeah, I mean, this is a central one. This is going great. We're gonna change the color scheme as well, but I might not give each of the eastern and northern lines individual colors. That may be just a little too much. So I think I'm just gonna go for like a greenish vibe. Just gonna copy this and we'll move down here and get that inserted. Can I? Oh, yikes, I can't paste that. I guess this is almost the same shade of green. I hope so. And then I think the outside connections will need something to distinguish these as well. Let's see, what am I missing here? I'm missing a blue. Yes, definitely blue. This really provides a nice overview. So we've now got the first station in place of the eastwards transit corridor, with tracks already in place for future expansions. we've got the first station in place for the northbound transit corridor, once again with tracks in place. And all we're missing is the expansion out west, which, I mean, it's technically northwest. And we don't have the station in place, that's gonna be for a future episode, but we do have the tracks branching out from the historical main station. Looking at our tram network, the Free line has just exploded in popularity with 1,300 passengers currently on this 11.3 kilometer line, which has, well, 3 new stops now across 2 episodes. This is really cool. I mean, we need more trams here. Let's get this bumped to 7, and then we'll see if that's gonna help alleviate it. The other lines aren't quite as busy, but we've only just been working on the Z4 line in this episode by expanding it so that it now doesn't terminate in Livonia anymore, but in this new district. And obviously it stops all the way out in Neuhafen as well. But if I overlay all the transit lines and our single pathetic bus line, I mean, you can get from one point to another in this city with public transit, if you actually put an effort to it. The only areas that aren't served all that well would be the industrial area of Kesselfels and I guess Zugwald up here in the north, this public housing estate, which is a bit of a bummer because you definitely have public transit here. But we'll see. I mean, there's plenty of work still to be done. It's starting to look good and mighty complex as well. But after nerding out so much with public transit, I think it's time we wrap up with a final development session here in the new district. I just want to move across this main avenue, get some of these blocks in place, and a little bit of detailing as well. Cool. So I decided to keep the detailing fairly light, but obviously this area needed just a bit of love because it's a pretty significant area sitting on the hill here. And I can't help but feel that these snobbity wealthy people were inspired by the French language and French in general when they were naming this place. So it is Mandere, which I think I'm pronouncing correctly, and which I think means Golden Hill or Wealthy Hill, something of the sorts. And Mandere is home to at least one elitist institution, which is the Mandere Girls Academy. So this is a private level elementary school for girls only, obviously, and it's where rich people send their girls for a super strict but also highly valuable elementary level education. Anyways, lots of trees, a few additional ponds as well, and then just some quick basic surfaces, nothing too fancy. And yeah, I'm trying to keep with the overall color scheme of this area, really just make it stand out a little bit. Oh, and I gotta give a quick shout out to this roundabout here in Mandere. I mean, this is just absolutely wild. And I swear it wasn't even on purpose. I mean, I don't mind purposefully complex stuff, but the line work here, my goodness, what a beauty. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap up with a quick service announcement to just acknowledge that I am reading a ton of comments about all the wonderful feedback down here in Neuhafen as well as over here in Bremen. I can announce that Pavel's American Diner gets to stay. He didn't need a bailout from the city and he no longer wishes to sell his establishments, because the golden middle, I guess, was achieved. Since so many new people moved into Neuhafen already, he's been able to turn things around and he's now making a steady profit selling traditional American type diner food to young hipsters. Quite the story, huh? We're gonna really wrap up by checking some ridership figures. Using the Better Transit View mod, I just realized we can enable counts of how many people are waiting at specific stops, and we can enable this little graphic as well, which shows the actual vehicles moving across the lines as well. I mean, this mod is just... this mod and then the network tools, things are just taking off in Cities 2, and I'm all for it. So having a look out here, it seems like both of the two northbound commuter lines see some decent ridership. So obviously one of these lead to the historical station and one to the modern one. Okay, so the overall utilization of the train network isn't fantastic, but I mean, I guess it means that there's quite a few free seats to choose from if you do travel by public transit here in Zeeburg, which is a good thing, right? We desperately need some renaming of these lines, so keep the comments coming. I'm looking for feedback on this one. I need a good unified naming scheme. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, all the cool, wonderful input. I hope you'll consider subscribing and enabling notifications if you do enjoy the content. I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.